Hey guys, welcome to week 3.
Week 3, here we go.
We are going to dive into have you developed the habit of happiness
The habit of happiness.
in regards to your marriage?
Yeah, there you go. And right out of the gate, they have this quote that talks about happiness is a habit, cultivate it. And I think anything that's meaningful, that's purposeful, is going to be something that you're going to have to cultivate. It's going to need your attention. And to actually make a habit out of something like happiness, what would that look like? Would it happen overnight? Would it be something that you'd have to be very intentional to? We know through neurology that it takes 21 days to make a habit. And so what would that look like for you and your spouse for the next 21 days to challenge yourself as well as them to try this and see if you can cultivate a habit of happiness? And so throughout the chapter, the authors do a great job really talking about happiness, so what it entails, how they dissect it, and they really even look at even this aspect of the power of negative thinking and what part that plays into happiness. But to kick us off, we're really going to talk about the secrets of happy couples. Because really, we want to know, is there something, a cheat code, if you will, or a pass that's going to take us around the mountain quicker? What is that secret that all happy couples have? Because again, we want to be happy, and it would be good to know that. And so the authors do a great job of talking about this. That research reveals that the level of a couple's joy is determined by each partner's ability to adjust to things beyond his or her control. That every happy couple has learned to find the right attitude in spite of the conditions they find themselves.
Well, and we, over the last 13 years, have found ourselves in some fun conditions. And some of those started early on, mainly because of what we've talked about some in past chapters of how we look at our spouse in the way we saw our parents or we were brought up in our childhood. And so for us, I know financially, our childhoods looked completely different.
Yeah, they did.
And with that, we both brought in expectations into our marriage. And I think for me, it was a lot harder because we've always lived on one income. And so we've had to be really wise with our money. And there were times that there were struggles, and I doubted Brady with how
everybody say, "Oh,
poor baby." But sorry. Doubted his management of our finances, and it did bring strife between us. And whenever there was a financial conflict, the happiness definitely disappeared. But the Lord used a certain situation. Let's see, I guess it was about 5 years, almost 4 years into our marriage. And Brady was planning ahead and to take care of our family. And we had multiple words spoken over us about a family and God's faithfulness to provide. And so Brady was planning ahead, and he surprised me with a Tahoe for Christmas. Now, most people would be elated at that. And my initial thought is like, oh my goodness, how can we afford this? We have this much in our savings. How much did he put down? How much are payments going to be? What is this? And the Lord stopped me in my thought process. And he said, Brady has managed this. He has looked at every just fine print detail. He has looked at your finances. He has prayed, and he is not going to put you or your family or your finances for your future in jeopardy because of this. And at that moment, I had the decision to either kind of make or break what just took place. I could make Brady feel horrible for this elaborate gift that I was blessed with that was going to carry our children and keep us safe, or I could just beat him down and say, "What are you thinking? Are you kidding?" But he's thinking, "Okay, you still have your 17-year-old high school car, and we're starting a family. We do not want to put our children in that." And so it was just an eye-opening experience for me. And from that point, it was like a total shift in my mindset. And I am forever grateful for that instance because it was such a learning experience for me.
Yeah, and the authors go on to talk about without the capacity to rise above your circumstances, you will never cultivate happiness. And so is happiness defined by your circumstances? Is happiness defined by your environment? Because if it is, then we can have the mindset of thinking, well, I just need a new environment. And now, I'm not saying that there aren't healthy or unhealthy environments, but again, the opportunity of self-reflecting and looking in the mirror of understanding what part of that is my part that I play, because if that is a major part, everywhere I go, there I am. And if I'm always seeking out after new environments, looking for my happiness, then it's a matter of time before that catches up to me, because there I am once again, and it's a matter of time before I need another environment. Or let's say it's not the environment, let's say it's the individual that I'm with, and they're not making me happy. Again, are they supposed to make you happy? Where does happiness come from? And again, this is just where, for Brent and myself, we've come to the understanding of looking to Scripture for that understanding. Again, where do you look? And I just pose that question not to ruffle any feathers, but really for us to open the opportunity for you to communicate and dialogue with your spouse. Where does that come from? And what does that look like? Because if the average couple, according to this resource, gets only 3 minutes of meaningful conversation, by us asking these conversations, it's to create environments for you to talk to your spouse, to create an expectation. Again, we just looked at that their brain is the largest organ when it comes to sex, physical intimacy, which might have been eye-opening for you, may not have been. But again, why is that? Because our brain deals with so much of what it is that we do. And expectations, is just as you've heard many, many times, is they can kill. So how do we manage expectations, and how do we create a appropriate expectation for happiness or joy or whatever emotion it is that we're trying to manage? It's by communicating again and again, like they said, without the capacity to rise above your circumstances, you will never cultivate happiness. And why is that? Because again, in this world, we have the story that Brent just communicated. That's just one. We're getting ready to celebrate our 13th year together, being married. Before that, we knew each other in high school. And so that's just one story of many. Even dealing with financial issues. So there are many, many stories to go along. And again, if we just look at the aspect of when we can get out of financial issues, or when we have more, not lack, or whatever that might be, then we miss out on the opportunity of seeing each other and interacting with each other in the now, and we're always chasing after tomorrow. Now, am I saying that it's not wise to plan? No, I'm not saying that at all. But again, if that's where my mind always is, then as a result of that, I miss the opportunities in the present, and I miss out on a lot of happiness as well. Why? Because I'm always looking for circumstances to be different, and as a result of that, I allow the external to dictate the internal, and because of that, I could possibly be, to some degree, in bondage as a result of that. And so as a result, the secret for happy couples is making sure the ability for you and your partner to adjust to things beyond your control. So what are some of those things that you and your spouse have experienced that you're sitting there thinking, I'm grateful for it, but man, I would never wish that upon anybody ever, right? We have had more stories of that than we care to admit. But again, I'm grateful for those being on this side. Why? Because I know that Brent and I can get through anything together. And that's a beauty, looking at what makes me happy. What makes me happy is, yeah, would it be more comfortable having a few things? Yeah, sure. But again, are we talking about comfort, or are we talking about happiness? And if it's about comfort, well, who is comfort? So again, that's a whole other discussion. But
And
happy.
it doesn't mean that just because we've experienced these, that when a trial arises, that it's easy peasy.
Sure.
Because we still have to go through thought process, and we have to have that communication. It's just we've learned through each situation how we work together and how to talk about it, how to be able to figure out, okay, we might be facing this, but we're not going to let it steal our joy. We're not going to let it come between us. We're not going to let it affect our relationship with the kids,
Sure.
each other.
Yeah.
And we're just going to hold tight to the hem of the Lord's garment and just trust that He is in control and He's going to guide us through.
Absolutely, and I think part of that, again, if you take look back a couple of pages, is the subheading of the power of negative thinking and how that gets ushered in, because like what Bryn was talking about, the expectations, or what it is that you had perceived marriage to be. And again, what is your normal? Well, typically our normal is what we grew up with. And so I could probably say secretively, I was trying to woo her into my ideology or belief because it was normal.
And I was trying to do the same for him.
Yeah.
But like we talked in week 1, we had to find what was right for Brady and Bryn Daniel, not the Daniels or the Bryants, but the two of us in our family.
Yeah. And so the power of negative thinking, and so what we understand is whatever your belief is in spirituality, that the vast majority of spiritual books talk about this idea of meditation, and whatever we feed grows. And we understand this biologically, just as you feed a baby and they get bigger. Why? Because whatever you feed grows. Well, this not only happens biologically, but it happens neurologically as well. Just as whatever thought I ponder upon or meditate on will grow. If that's positive, great. If that's negative, okay. But again, whatever I feed grows. And the more that I meditate or ponder upon it, the more I'm feeding it, the more fuel I'm giving it. And as a result of that, I can allow this one thought to be catastrophic. Then how is that going to cause my communication with my wife? What is it going to cause distance as a result? And because of that, what is our degree of happiness and or joy going to be as a result of this negative thinking? Because when we look at these massive snowballs, if you will, how did that massive snowball, let's say the size of Rhode Island, for whatever reason, just Rhode Island, right? How did it get that way? Well, it got that way by one snowflake at a time. But again, that one snowflake in size and dimensions, I mean, it's nothing, right? But again, as it accumulates and becomes compacted and compound, it gets bigger and it grows. The same way it happens with our negative thinking. That one thought, if I can believe the best of my wife, or what her actions are, what it's not, or if I need to have a conversation. This happened to us actually, what was that, yesterday, where something took place and one of us needed to go to the other one and said, hey, I know this isn't you, but I know how the enemy likes to twist and distort. So I want this to be concrete and not a hypothetical that potentially could come back and work against me. And as a result of that, we had a great discussion. It was concretely defined. And as a result of that, we were able to move forward, go to bed, sleep well, get up, and have our Sunday as a result of that. But what areas of negative thinking impact the marriage and or your marriage? So I think it'd be a great opportunity for you this week to talk about what are the vulnerabilities that you have within your thinking. How does that impact you? And to voice that onto your spouse of saying, hey, here's some vulnerabilities that I have. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I think that we know of is usually when we're tired, when we're stressed, and when we're pressed, typically what's in us, the good, bad, and ugly, comes out. And so, what are the times? If you're tired, you take a nap. If you're hungry, you go to sleep. Those logical things that you can do. But what does it even mean to know the logical nature of your spouse? To know that, guess what, they had a hard day. Maybe it's not the most opportune moment to talk to them about this. Maybe you need to give them a little time before you bring that to their attention.
Before you drop a bomb on them.
Absolutely, But again, what does this look like? And it goes back to communication. You're going to see this as a silver lining all throughout this text, is that it's about communicating, because the way that we communicate works for us, but does it work for you? Mm-hmm. Work what works best for you and work it so that you can allow that tool to minister and connect with you to a greater degree, so that you have those healthy expectations.
Well said.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, anything else that...
No, I just think, like you said, your challenge this week, just really spend time with each other, talking about how y'all work. If there's any areas y'all need to tweak and figure out, okay, is there something stealing your happiness, and how can you prevent that?
Sure. Because I think one of the gravest things that we can do is think, oh, I'm strong enough to handle this on my own. But typically what happens, or what we see through research, is that it causes division and divide in that until resolve happens. Well, a lot of times, I'm trying to think of the doctor, who's the marriage researcher that they talk about all the time in here, Dr. Gottman. Dr. John Gottman talks about a lot of the marital conflicts through research never get resolved. And again, why is that? Well, a lot of that, from my own personal experience, again, I'm taking his research and attaching my own personal belief of why that is because we try to handle that upon ourselves. Mm-hmm. We don't go to our spouse, ask for forgiveness, figure out what we did wrong, where is that resolved, so that we can agree to disagree, or agree that we were in the wrong, or whatever that looks like, so that there can be healing and wholeness moving forward. But again, if those things continue to go unresolved, then the next time they come up, it can be even more catastrophic, and as a result of that, cause more division and strife. And again, marriage is difficult enough as it is. It's beautiful and it's amazing, but again, it's two individuals coming together as one, and typically it's a very healing aspect. But sometimes it can be difficult. It's amazing and a lot of fun, I'll give that. But again,
Purple.
A lot of it. That will always be your challenge from here on out. So if we give you a challenge, that's challenge 1A. Well, actually, it's challenge 1B, because challenge 1A will always be purple, right?
Right.
Right. So again, communicate. And so...
And that is it.
That's it. Purple.
We will see you later this week.